Hey there, welcome to the Wellberry. This is Dr. Nirmala, and today I can assure you that this episode is information packed. You're going to meet with a lady who has successfully turned her health around, and she did this by changing her food style. When I first started my low carb journey in 2019, there really wasn't much information around, and the information that was available was quite confusing and sometimes even scary. Most of you know that I had a lot of health issues and I needed to do something because medicines just weren't doing the job. And that's when I started my own low carb wellness journey. And while on it, I kept surfing to look for support groups because there wasn't really much information on what kind of food we Indians could eat. I mean, how much of steak and vegetables can we always have, right? That's when I came upon this group called Keto Kitchen India or KKI. And on that group, I noticed that there was this lady who was so helpful. Any questions that people had, she would be one of the first responders. And at the time, I remember thinking I would really like to get to know her because there's a wealth of experience. Her name is Melrose Rebeiro. And I know that today's is a slightly longer episode, but like I told you, I promise it is a wealth of information and you will surely gain from it. So even if it means that you have to hit that pause button and come back to it later, trust me, it's well worth it. I do hope that you learn from her experiences and it will help you to either kickstart your own wellness journey or maybe kind of cross those hurdles that you may be having. Now, before I actually start chatting with her, here's the disclaimer. This video does not count as a medical consultation. If there are any medical or health issues that you have, do consult with a professional for guidance. Both Melrose and I apologize for the background noise. I know that it can be a little distracting, but I couldn't do too much about it because she travels a lot, and it was really generous of her to kind of take away time from her family to sit with us and talk to us about this therapeutic carb restriction journey of hers. Now, without any further delay, let's meet the lady herself. Hi, Melrose. Welcome to the Wellberry channel. So for me, it's like a fangirl moment because fan woman, fangirl, whatever. Because I've kind of known about you for quite a while now. I think since 2019, and it's always been in my mind that I should speak to you, get to know your journey a little more. And I'm so happy that not just me, but even the others who are going to listen to this interview will gain a lot of knowledge from you and see how much you have been able to achieve with your own, what should I say, low carb, and also with the kind of lifestyle that you have right now. So before we actually
Yeah.
start talking about your experiences, Melrose, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. So, thank you so much, Nirmala, for having me here, first of all. And to put it briefly, I as a child, I was very athletic, so I didn't have any issues, as such in terms of health or anything. And like I've said before, when you're young, you think you're invincible. So you're active or inactive or whatever. You eat different kinds of things, but we don't focus too much on what we eat or whatever, and still things get by because you have a certain type of metabolism or whatever it is. And then I think later on in life, I did put on a lot of weight, and then along with that came a lot of associated health issues. So that was when I explored different options. I looked at resistance training, running, and at some point I realized that to an extent, while it does take care of your weight to some point, I think beyond the point when it comes to overall health and well-being, somewhere we have to eliminate the carbs.
We are talking about a therapeutic low carb diet or a therapeutic carb restricted diet. And for those of you who are
Yeah.
listening in, therapeutic carb restriction means you have an intolerance towards carbohydrates. Your body can't take too much of it. And because of that, and because of medical issues, then you need to kind of start restricting it and see what's the amount that your body can tolerate. What were the issues that you had, Melrose, which made you actually get into this and start exploring it?
um, say a cumulative accumulation of factors, led to certain amount of weight gain. But like I said, it also led to a lot of different health issues. So I had high blood pressure of 140 by 110 for over 10 years. My cholesterol was through the roof. My liver function, kidney function numbers were really bad. My TSH was 8.99. So, and apart from this, I even though I was fairly active, like I would walk a lot and I was, still quite active even at that time, but I would find myself out of breath. I found that I was, extremely tired. I didn't have too much of energy. It was hard. Even waking up at 7 was difficult, and everything was off track. So I did, and my BP, my blood pressure was really high. So that also leads to a lot of other problems. In fact, at one point, the doctor asked me to go and get an eye exam as well, because your blood pressure does, impact your eyes, your kidneys,
Yeah.
and various other organs. It's a root cause of, even a lot of dialysis patients actually start off with blood
Right.
pressure. Blood pressure is the reason that, yes, right, it leads to very serious issues.
Mm.
So that was my major concern. Literally everything that could go wrong had gone wrong, and so I met different doctors. I met a cardiologist, and I was on statins and BP meds. But like I said, for medications, they will try and keep things in control, but it doesn't really cure you as such. So at some point, I realized that there has to be some intervention which will help me, get rid of these diseases completely. So initially, while it started off as something that targeted weight loss, actually, to be very honest, because initially when I started it, it was for weight loss. But when I started seeing the health benefits that came along with it, I realized that this is an outcome of carb restriction. And actually, within about 3 or 4 months of going low carb, my blood pressure actually dropped to 120 by 90. So
Yeah.
that was the biggest change that happened for me. Yeah.
When you talk about therapeutic carb restriction, what exactly are you following now? Is it just the diet, or is there anything else that goes along with it? And what's your level of carb intake? Because so many people, when we talk about reducing carbs, they get very flustered, and
Yeah.
they feel that it's also dangerous for their body. So, what do you have to say
Hmm.
about that?
Okay, so I'll just go a little bit into a background if that's okay. So our ancestors were hunters, right? So it was all about fasting, and when they did, find prey, it was about eating nose to tail. So it was predominantly carnivores and maybe some amount of dairy, right? But there was no cultivation, there was no grain, there was no leafy green vegetables or any of these things. So this was the initial part, and yet they survived. They were strong. There were no issues with stamina. There was no cholesterol or any of these issues, even though they ate meat and fat. Now, later on, also, I think a lot of our predecessors did have a relatively healthier diet. But somewhere along the way, we came to a path where, say, big industry wanted to have, items that had a very long shelf life. So
Yes.
what they did was, if they wanted something to be preserved, they had to suck the nutrients out. So a lot of the good part was taken out of it, and they added fillers. So you would have like say corn syrups and sugars, because that would increase the life of product. So the first step that I would recommend to anyone is that even if you are skeptical or you are scared, the first thing that you can and should do is eliminate processed food and eliminate sugars,
Yes.
right? Because there's nothing good that comes of these two things. There is no benefit whatsoever of having processed foods and having sugars, right? Anything which is full of unhealthy, unnatural fats, right, is not necessary. Another thing that I would say is take off your seed oils, right? Go for the cold pressed oil, because seed oils go through a process which is it's a chemical process whereby they use very high heat to extract oil from seeds. So that's not actually healthy for our bodies. It's not meant for our bodies. We're not supposed to be eating those kinds of things. So you stick to the natural things that our ancestors practiced. Stick to homemade butter, stick to ghee, right? Or cold pressed oils are still okay. So these are the basics that I would say that anybody needs to follow. Beyond that, when people want to go further, then I would say eliminate grains, because grains also are inflammatory for most people. And while people believe, because it's a psychological thing, we have grown up eating grains, so we think like, oh, it's a natural part of our diet. It's not a natural part of our diet. It's just a habit that we have formed over the years, which seems like it's natural, but there's actually nothing natural about it. So grains are technically inflammatory, and the way you can check it is you eliminate grains, all grains. You eliminate grains for maybe a month and see how you feel.
Mm.
Right? A lot of people will find that there is no discomfort, right? They don't have any indigestion, they don't have any bloating, they don't have any kind of, um, you know, um, they don't feel uncomfortable at all. You'll find that your skin looks better, your hair feels better. So
Yes.
you can do that experiment on yourself. You can eliminate it for some time without completely eliminating carbs, but you eliminate grains, you eliminate processed food, you eliminate sugars.
Mm.
right? And then people can slowly progress from there. Now, when it comes to me, actually, I just deep dived into keto. So I actually went into less than 20 grams of carbs,
Mm.
and as a result of that, say for the first 3 months, I did not see too much change in terms of weight loss, but I did see a lot of, I gained a lot of strength after the initial, what you say is known as keto flu, because your body is used to extracting energy from carbs. You
Mm.
suddenly restricted carbs. So there is a time period, there is a gap when your body is adapting to the change in fuel source. So during that time, you might feel lethargic or weak. You don't feel as strong as you are. But once you surpass that, you will find that you have an unlimited supply of energy because there is no limit to the fat in your body. We have quite a large supply of fat in our body
Yes.
versus when we eat frequently or you have certain number of meals and your glycogen lasts for a certain while. So your body then taps into that endless source of energy and you have that at all times. So
Yeah.
that's when you have like a boost of energy. So I found that um, really invigorating. I found that really great. It helped me in whether it was running or working out or even thinking. Your mind is so much more alert when it's on keto. So I do feel that low carb or keto it has a lot of benefits once your body adapts to it.
I've been very open about it when I talk to people on the YouTube channel and even wherever I get a chance. For me, I've been pre-diabetic since the time I was in my 20s. And
Yeah.
apart from being put on metformin and things like that, nothing else was ever advised to me. I think as doctors, we don't really realize how much of an importance nutrition plays where our health is concerned. And it's not in our
Yes.
curriculum. So most doctors will just tell you, you need to lose weight, and here is a
Yeah.
person who's trying her best. I mean, in her 20s and all that, who wants to be like obese and things like that?
Yes.
And
Yes.
like you said, eating as less as possible, but getting no results. Going to the gym also, but still you lose about 5 to 6 kilos, 10 kilos at the
Yeah.
max, and then you don't lose anything more, right? So
Yes.
when I started the low carb lifestyle, for me also, the first thing I noticed was like within a few months, I could get off the diabetes medication. At what age did you start this?
I think at 40.
Okay.
It was 40. I started. So basically, I was around 80 kilos, and this is when I was throughout my 30s. And at 39, I tried various diets and nothing worked. There would be marginal changes, but nothing really worked. I tried. Finally, at 39, I said, "That's it. I'm going to get into it, full blooded." So I
Mm,
started resistance training. I started running, and I dropped from 80 to about 66. But
mm,
then you plateau because what happens is after a certain age, it's not just about. A lot of people think that okay, fine, you eat more, so you put on weight.
mm.
It's not like that at all. In fact, a lot of people who are overweight eat less or eat too few
Exactly.
calories.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that actually messes up your metabolism because your body goes into a fat storage mode.
Mm,
So the whole thing is that you need to eat well and you need to give your body enough, certain amount of protein.
mm,
So I think if you follow these principles, it's a long term
mm.
benefit to you.
Okay. And like you said, you were 39. And I remember the
Yeah.
first time when you and I were talking, and I told you I'm older to you. The first thing you said, and I
Mhm.
was, though we were laughing about it, but the first thing you said is it must be so much more difficult for you. So it's better
Yeah.
that when people recognize these kind of imbalances in their body, that they actually started at a slightly earlier age rather than waiting to kind of be 45 plus and then start. Your body resists the
Yeah. So this is an example that we discussed last time. My During the pandemic, a lot of teenagers had put on weight because they were sitting at home. Active teenagers. And as soon as the pandemic opened up and they went back to playing sports, they actually dropped that weight in just maybe a month's time. Everybody was back to normal. So, and the same thing is when you're in your 20s. When you're in your 20s, you'll find it's still easier because you don't have too many hormonal problems,
Hmm.
right? You still have a larger muscle mass. But once you turn 30, then you have this thing called sarcopenia, right? So you start losing 1% of your muscle mass every year.
Hmm.
So that's a lot of muscle loss
Muscle.
actually. Now, the more muscle you have, the faster your metabolism is, right? The more fat burn will be there. The less muscle you have, the more fat storage will be there in your body. It will slow down your metabolism. So it's a cycle that you have to take care of. So now women in their 40s, and especially women more than men, right? Because this is also hormonal.
Yes.
So women in their 40s will find it a lot harder to lose weight or to even maintain your weight. And women in their 50s, it sometimes feels almost impossible, but it's not. So, so women in their 40s, women in their 50s will find it a lot harder to lose weight because of a lot of hormonal issues that we have.
Mm.
So now, for example, I'll be 44 this year, right? But I still feel like I have to put an effort to maintain that weight, right? So you have to do a certain amount of resistance training, a certain amount of physical activity, but it's still a lot easier when you restrict the carbs, right? I
Mm.
think carbs, like we said, if you have a certain amount of carbs and it converts into glycogen, and you use a certain amount of that glycogen, the rest of it will just get converted into fat.
Okay. Okay.
So it's the easiest way for your body to store fat.
True, and that's what I people don't understand this. Initially, they're zapped when like we talk to them and we tell them, like first get your diet in order, then start
Yes.
building the exercise. Let your body get used to kind of being fat adapted, or get used to
Yeah.
having lesser grains in the diet, and then start
Yeah.
exercising. So initially, people are like, "What are you talking about?" I mean, we've always been taught that you need to exercise first, and this is like a
Yeah.
totally different ball game altogether. Yeah, so my question to you is like, how did this impact you emotionally, knowing that at a young age you have high BP, your renal parameters, kidney parameters is not something to joke about.
Throughout my 20s, there wasn't any issue as such. It was fine. So suddenly, when this happened in my 30s, it actually came to me as a big blow, and I actually thought that this is going to be with me for life. Because see, look at our older generation. If you look at our parents' generation, there are people who spend their entire lives with high BP. You don't ever hear of a person whose blood pressure has come down.
Right.
So you look at that and you think that okay, fine, I'm just stuck with this for life. I'm going to be having this Met Excel 50 for the rest of my life. It's a part of my morning routine. You have your cup of tea or whatever. You have your
Tab-
blood pressure medicine. That's
Yeah.
it. Yeah, and you check it up periodically. In fact, I asked my cardiologist if I can, slowly, if there's anything I can do to reduce my BP and I can start reducing my medication. He said, no, you cannot. So I still remember that. And after I went low carb keto and it literally plunged, and I took my BP, readings a few times over a month, and I went back to the cardiologist and I said, now can I reduce my medication? And then he checked my BP and he said, yeah, okay, you can completely stop it. So that was a huge relief for me. I felt like, okay, fine, I've achieved something. And I think that was way more impactful than weight loss or anything else. See, weight loss will happen,
Hmm.
right? It's weight loss will happen, but I
Yes.
think the main concern we have is long term health issues which have to be cured. So I
Okay.
think somewhere there, carb restriction plays a very big role.
So tell us about your journey when you began. Did you do any research? Did you do any reading? Did you consult with people? How exactly did you decide on keto, and how exactly did you decide on what level of keto? Because even keto has different levels of carb restriction. So how did you decide on that?
So for me, what happened was I like to look at data before I make a decision. And as you are aware, if anyone starts looking for keto on the internet, you'll give yourself a scare.
Yes.
So I think it's been around for a long time, but it's still very nascent. So people have not we don't have long term research which shows you about either the benefits or the disbenefits. So there's a lot of speculation,
Mm.
and anything which is not proven, it's subject to different kinds of interpretation. And anything that is out of the norm will always get a bad name. It's still a cultural thing. So initially, I was at some point I realized that I have to do something. I mean, I was literally desperate. I was like, I've done everything possible. I'm still stuck. My health issues have not changed. Actually, my cardiologist told me that you're 80 kilos. If you drop 10 kilos, your blood pressure will come within range. I dropped over 12. I dropped 14 kilos, but my BP was exactly the same.
Mm.
All my markers were exactly the same. There was no change.
Okay.
So these are the effects of long-term damage. It
Mm.
doesn't get reversed, like it,
Yes.
it should have get reversed. It doesn't get reversed.
Mm.
So I was at that point I was literally desperate and I was like, I need to do something. So I started researching about keto, but I was scared
Mm.
because the information is conflicting and you don't know if you want to do that. And then I met the admin of Keto Kitchen India at an event, And so that time I asked him, I said, should I do this? Should I take the plunge? And he said, yes, yes, you absolutely should. And the first thing he asked me is, do you do some kind of workout? And I said, yes. And he said, okay, fine, then you should do. So he recommended a nutritionist whom I tied up with. And I think that gave me a lot of clarity. So even though I did research a lot and I do read a lot, so so that I'm very clear about what I'm doing, about what I ate and what I drank. But I think having some kind of guidance at the initial part is very important because a lot of people tend to do it wrong,
Yes.
right? They think that keto is all about fat. So okay, fine, let me just pile on the bacon. All the stuff that I couldn't eat when I was trying to lose weight the usual way. When I was still eating carbs and stuff is okay, fine. You reduce the fat, and you see a lot of posts across different websites where people talk about no oil cooking as if oil is a bad thing. Oil is not a bad thing. It's the combination of carbs and fat which is a dangerous combination. It is not fat in itself, right? So we discussed this earlier as well. You have essential amino acids, you have essential fatty acids. You don't have essential carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are in effect not essential, right? You can eliminate it. Your body processes to take care of it when it needs glycogen. It can manufacture it. It's a lot smarter than we give it credit for.
Yeah, yeah. How was your family with this? Because I know when I told my husband, I told Chris, I'm going to cut out rice, I'm going to cut out rotis. For a second, he just sat down and looked at me. He's like,
Yeah.
is this even sustainable? I mean, he's seen me struggle with this all my life. I mean, for as long as we've known each other, he's seen me struggle with my weight. He's seen me go from being very mobile to actually just having to sit down because I was in pain all the time.
Yeah.
So I would just go do my rounds. I would come back and I would have to sit down because my back would ache, my thighs would ache.
Yeah.
And obviously, being a South Indian, I was a rice eater. I also like things like bread and rotis and all of that. And when I suddenly
Yeah.
told him, okay, I'm eliminating all of this and I'm going on a low carb diet, he actually it took 2 days or 3 days for him to say, okay, fine, whatever you do, I'm there, I'm supporting you, but just make sure that you know what you're doing. I mean, make sure that you're always checking your kidney function, liver function. I'm there with
Yeah.
you.
So my husband was supportive. He didn't have. I mean, he'd seen me struggling with this for a long time. So he was, I mean, and I think he also knew that I would have done my research. I would have looked into it very deeply. I wouldn't have just gone into something without thinking it through. So that way there was no issue with my husband. But I actually started on 26th of December, which is so Christmas. I said I'm going to eat whatever I want on Christmas Day. So I did. I had everything, and then on 26th, I said, "That's it. I'm just taking the plunge." So I nosedived, and I think this is something that people have to identify. You have to identify whether you're the kind of person who can graduate into something and continue it, or whether you just need to cut it out completely and just go into it. So depending on how you are as a person, you just have to take that call, and I did. And I still remember so I met my parents for New Year's, and they were all eating, the normal stuff. So there were biryani, and there was potato chops and stuff. And so I just had the meat and the salads, and I still remember my mom looked at me and she said, "Tell me one thing, you will never eat rice and roti ever again." And I remember it was such a genuine question. It was so innocent, and I could feel her confusion. It was like, oh my god, you're never gonna have. And my parents are South Indian. My mom is a Mangalorean, so my mom and all it's like you have your fish curry and your rice or your rice and curries or even your dal rice and your fried fish.
Mm.
So and your dosa, then your appams. So it's a very carb heavy kind of. And I'm talking about non-vegetarians.
Mm.
If you talk about vegetarian, so then it's an entirely different,
Different ballgame.
ballpark. Yes, yes. So even for non-vegetarians, it's like rice, like a lot of rice, a little bit of curry, and a few pieces of meat or a little bit of fish or whatever. But the emphasis is always on carbs. So I think for them it was a little bit of a shock that, oh my god,
Cultural shock.
like, is this even possible? Yeah, like is that possible? Are you sure about this? And so I was like, yeah, I'm very sure about this. And they were like, okay. So of course they have supported me.
Melrose, when you started your therapeutic carb restriction kind of lifestyle, did you have any challenges with regards to planning your meals?
Yeah. So for me, what I used to do is I used to just cook non-veg in larger quantities. So say for example, maybe just make 2 kilos of chicken or mutton or whatever. So that would last for maybe 2 or 3 days. I have a larger amount of protein, so it doesn't last very long anyway. But I find that that is a lot easy to do because unlike vegetables, they don't have to be it doesn't have to be cooked fresh each and every time. You can always cook non-veg a little bit in advance and keep. So it would go for maybe say 2 or 3 days. So that would be helpful. That was one thing. And then that paired with any simple, you can just pair it with salad. I used to pair it either with salads with cheese, or I used to pair it with your normal Indian vegetables. Your bindi and your kundru or whatever. Just cook how you normally cook it and just have that. So that's a very satiating meal when you have it cooked in ghee or butter or olive oil, and you have your meat and your vegetables. So that was fairly easy for me to manage.
Mm.
And the thing is, even if I would travel or go out for meals and stuff, I would just stick to that. So if it was a meal, I would try and avoid sauces, which would probably have fillers or flour and it will thicken. So just avoid your thick soups and your sauces, and just ask for vegetables in place of rice. I've even gone to Chili's, for example, and I've asked them for they have a chicken avocado burger. So it's not a burger. See, burgers have fillers.
Yes.
So it's you now get burgers which are basically grilled meat, like a
Mm.
chunk of chicken
Mm.
or a chunk of meat or whatever.
Mm.
So I would ask them for the grilled chicken burger with avocado and bacon, and ask them to just take away the bun. So they would look at me in a very confused manner, but I would you get what you want. I would get my bunless burger with and then replace the veggies or the fries with vegetables. So I
Mm.
think that way it was fine. I think meal planning is actually quite simple if you're determined and you really have a focus on what you want to achieve. I think you'll find solutions to all of
Yes.
these problems. I think it is manageable. Sometimes it does get tough, yes, of course, but I think largely it is manageable, especially for non-vegetarians.
Mm. Yeah. And one of
Yeah,
the things I've learned to do is like, even if I'm going to a restaurant, initially, like you said, I would just look at the menu and then see what needs to be done in terms of my meal. But now I
yeah.
actually call up the restaurant that I'm going to if I know where I'm going in advance, or if I'm ordering in. I'll actually call up and speak to somebody there and say, make sure there's no
Yeah.
sauce with sugar in it. Make sure there's no breadcrumbs, no bun, no maida, and all of that. Yeah. So the guys will be like,
Yeah.
okay, fine, very worked up. This is like a very particular lady. Let's not get bad reviews on Swiggy and things like that. But yeah,
Yeah.
I think that helps. To some extent, we have to kind of take care of ourselves and our own needs.
Yeah. So there's another challenge that I found. What happens is one is also for people who are working. Say you're traveling with colleagues and bosses, or you're going to an event. Where it's different, where you can't always say that okay, I'm not eating this and I'm not eating that, for example. So what I would generally tend to do is if either I'll just have a meal, a normal meal, and then fast the rest of the day, so that it's kind of like OMAD or one meal a day. So you still kind of remain in ketosis, even though that does happen. So that was one exception that I used to follow. But this is of course I wouldn't recommend this to people who are diabetic because you don't want a
A
sugar
sugar
spike. This
drop.
is for those who don't have. Yeah, yeah,
I know that you travel a lot, okay, a lot.
yeah,
So how much, and this is like in today's day and age, this is so relevant because most people have to travel as part of their work. So
yeah,
how do people manage then? And I get this question a lot, like I'm meeting my boss, how do I manage around my meals and things like that? What would your
yeah.
advice be to people?
Say for example, you've gone to a, a, a summit or a training program, where you have a buffet lunch spread, and you can always pick and choose what you need to have, which is what I do. So if it's a training program or something, I'll just pick whatever I want. So I'll just pick the paneer and the chicken and maybe some salads, and your meal is done, right? And if you're ordering, if it's a la carte, obviously you can just order a grilled chicken or something which doesn't have fillers or whatever, and you can order a salad and you can have it without drawing too much of attention into what exactly you're eating. So you don't have to necessarily go and order the biryani. Sometimes I just order, a paneer tikka and I just have the entire thing myself. At times it is challenging. Yes, if you, what happens is like I think we discussed this also once on call that there's a lot of visual stimulation. So when we were growing up, I think there wasn't too much of visual stimulation. You don't have so many ads on TV, and you didn't have all these codings, and you didn't have Insta with endless pictures of food and biryanis and drinks and and sweet things. But what happens is now there's so much of visual stimulation that you have to be able to steal yourself. So when you go to a buffet and you do take those things, and then you see the sweets and you do get tempted. Everybody gets tempted, even I get tempted. But I think the way around it is, see, once in a while it's okay if you're given, it's okay. You don't have to beat yourself up about it. But one of the things that works for me is if you have enough protein and you have enough fat. So that's protein is the most satiating food that you can eat. It's the most nutritious and satiating macronutrient, followed by fat. Fat is very satiating, but of course it's less nutritious, right? So if you fill up on protein, you don't feel so hungry, so you don't crave so much for
Mm.
those little delicacies that are lined up at the end of the
Yes.
the buffet line. So I
Mm.
think these are just some small things that we can take care of. And another thing is when you're traveling, if you can just keep snacks with you, you keep roasted almonds with you,
Yes.
or you keep whatever peanut or things with you, so that you eat something that you like and you don't
Mm.
necessarily have to reach for a bag of chips or something unhealthy. And hydrate a lot. If you hydrate a lot, you'll find that half those problems are over. You won't crave for the sweet juices and
Yes.
all those kinds of things if you
Yes.
if you are hydrated. I think a lot of times it's just plain good old fashioned thirst and hunger which we
Yes.
mistake as craving for
Yes.
for carbs or for sweet. It's just hunger or thirst,
Mm.
and your body is not telling you that I want to have that mango juice there or I want to have this milkshake. No, it just wants nutrition. It just wants something where it can extract nutrients from.
Yes. Yes.
And I think another mistake that people make is when they are really hungry and they want to lose weight, they just put a big bowl of salad in front of themselves. That is something I could never do
Exactly.
because yeah, you sit with that and then it looks so unappealing that you don't feel like having it. So then you'll reach for the next unhealthy thing. So the
Exactly.
idea is, yeah, pick something you really like to have. So I like my grills. I
Mm.
like certain veggies. I like bindi. I like certain types of vegetables. I like brinjal a lot. So pick those things so that you enjoy your meal. I mean, if you want something to be a lifestyle, you have to enjoy.
Yes.
And I think you can, just like the pattern has built up with us from our childhood of eating rice and rotis or whatever, I think you can also build up that habit of having, meat and vegetables. So I think it's all about conditioning your body or conditioning your mind first and then your body.
Yes.
And everything is possible. Yeah.
Just to add to what you're saying, even our electrolytes, right? We need enough of our
Yeah.
electrolytes. Something as simple as the Himalayan pink salt can actually help in so
Yeah.
many ways while we are on a therapeutic carb restriction. One of the things
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, and since you brought it up, there's so much of concern about protein, right? So, like everybody's like, how can you eat so much of protein? It's going to put pressure on your kidney. Women are worried about protein, and like, am I going to start looking very muscular if I start having that much protein? Will I start becoming manly? The other thing about the gout. So, what's your take on that? Are we going to be overdoing protein when we are on a low carb lifestyle? And is it as dangerous as people say it is?
The thing is, I think protein is the most misunderstood macronutrient. Okay, so I have a close family member who is a dialysis patient, and the one of the key recommendations from the nephrologist was that he has to have protein twice or thrice a week, and we're talking about animal protein. We're not talking about vegetarian sources of protein. So, a nephrologist who's advising this to a patient who's on dialysis obviously means that there has to be a certain amount of protein that is needed by the body. Now, the thing is, your kidneys are usually under pressure, not because there's too much of protein, okay, but because a lot of times is people don't hydrate enough, so there is not enough fluid in your body, in your blood, for it to filter out all the uric acid, right? Which is why a lot of times gout is an outcome of having certain types of protein and not drinking enough water. So a lot of problems get sorted out when you hydrate enough, when you take care of your body from all sides. It cannot be just a one-sided thing. And now when we're talking about too much protein, what is too much protein? See, there is a calculator which will tell you that if I'm active, certain level of activity, I follow a certain level of activity, right? I am a certain height, I am a certain weight. Based on that, you're recommended a certain amount of protein, which is what your body needs for maintaining its muscle. Because, like we said earlier, sarcopenia, may you start losing
Hmm.
muscle after a certain point of time. So, for your body to maintain that muscle, for it to maintain the metabolism, for you to maintain your skin, your hair, everything else, you need protein. So protein is
Yes.
your building block for you. Everything, your skin, your joints, right? It needs everything is to do with protein. So it tells you that you need to have, this is the minimum amount of protein you need to have, right? As long as you have that, it is not an excess in any case.
Yeah.
right? And another thing is there is a misconception about protein. So people think that okay, if I have vegetarian sources of protein or vegetable sources of protein, that is better for my body. No, it's not. Your kidneys actually struggle to extract, it struggles to process protein from vegetarian sources of food. So you, all your pulses, your dals, your kidney beans, your, or as we say, rajma, your chola, right, all of these things, it takes a lot more pressure, it creates a lot more pressure on your kidneys to process these sources of protein than it does from animal protein.
Mm.
Okay, so animal sources of protein are a lot more easier on your kidneys than this. So, and if there are a lot of people who eat only eggs, if that's the case, have eggs. Eggs are very easily digested.
Mm.
So, this is something else that I've read, but I'll just explain it to you. Like, for example, we talk about the body's ability to digest
Mm.
animal food and vegetable matter, right? But if you, for example, when you, a lot of people don't realize this, but if you actually look at indigestible matter that comes out even in fecal matter, it's always vegetable. Have you
Yes.
realized that?
Yes.
It's always your peas and your corn.
Yes, definitely. We are talking about non-vegetarian proteins being a better source of protein. It's also something that our
Yes.
body can easily digest. But if a person is purely vegetarian because of cultural reasons, they can get into this and
Yes.
they can do it as long as they maintain the protein. The problem with when people are pure vegetarians is that they find they struggle with the protein intake. Would you agree with that?
Yes, 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 definitely. Yeah, and even if they do, say for example, if they follow low carb or keto, and if they have dairy,
Mm.
I think that's still manageable. But those who, I think the hardest time is for say vegans, right?
Mm.
Where you have eliminated meat and dairy, then it
Right.
becomes a lot tougher
Yeah.
to focus. But there are still people who do, right? They do have plant based protein, and they do try and have plant sources of collagen and things like this. But so there are ways to maintain it. It's a lot tougher, yes, for sure. But even then, whether you're a vegetarian or a vegan or a non-vegetarian, you have to ensure you get your amount of protein. Otherwise, you will find that there are issues in your body also. Your body, see, we need protein for your day-to-day activities as well. And if your body doesn't get protein, it's going to pull that protein out of your hair, your skin, your joints,
Mm.
your muscle,
Yes.
right? So it will start destroying your muscles because it's an easy source of muscle. So it will start destroying your muscles. It will start, and then you will find that your skin is sagging. You will find that your all the life is gone out of your skin. Your hair is falling.
Mm.
That's because your body has prioritized its processes, and for it, the sustenance is more important than the superficial reasons for it. So it
Yes.
will suck the protein out of your hair, your skin, your muscles, and it will service the body needs. So that's the reason why protein is imperative. So if you have your protein macros, right, you're taking care of a basal need that your body has.
I remember the first time we went out of station and we were staying in a hotel. Uh, like you also mentioned, when we passed by the dessert table at a buffet, I literally had to tell myself, step away from that table, step away. But
Yeah,
now, as time goes by, yes, the cravings are much lesser. You're not always like, I stopped watching a lot of cookery shows because the dessert
yeah,
challenges and all of that really makes you want to go into the fridge, like you said, visual stimulation. You see something, you want to go to
yeah.
the fridge and have something from it, right? uh, but
Yes, yes.
but then there's this whole new different discussion about sweeteners. What do you think about
Yeah.
and especially for us who are on a therapeutic low carb and where we're not eating sugar, what is your take on sweeteners?
So I actually read this. I don't know if you know. There's a website called Keto Games, and
Okay.
it's run by these two people, and one of them is Lewis.
Mm.
So I think they talk about keto from a very high protein perspective, which is what I follow, which is high protein keto. And it was very interesting because this question was brought up, and someone asked them that how much is good. And so one, I would say anything that is unnatural is not good. So you have to eliminate the sucralose and the aspartame for sure,
Mm.
right? Which is all your diet cokes and your mass-produced sugar-free items.
Mm.
So do I have it? Yes, I do have it. Sometimes I do have an occasional diet coke, but what happens is it messes with your gut bacteria, and somewhere down the line it is an issue. So you have to eliminate sucralose, aspartame from your diet, and you can go with more natural sweeteners like stevia, for example, erythritol, right, which are plant-based.
Mm.
But again, in that, it's you. because we don't have long-term studies on it, it is better to have everything in moderation.
Mm.
But this is what I remember what Lewis said, and I think this is very, very valid. He says, we worry so much about how much stevia we are having, while at the same time we're drinking water out of plastic bottles.
Mm.
Right?
Yes.
The long-term effects of, so I think there's a lot of, there's a microscopic evaluation of everything that's different, So it's like, oh my God, you're having sweeteners. Is that okay? Will that affect me in the long run? And you're drinking water out of bottles that you have in your kitchen, which have been there for months, which is probably, leaching out so many cancerous compounds into the water that you're consuming, that you're putting in your food.
Mm.
You're storing water in your canisters, right? So those things have far-reaching consequences as compared to your natural sweeteners. So I think natural sweeteners are fine, but like we said, in moderation. You keep everything in moderation. Don't overdo the natural sweeteners, right? A lot of people who follow keto and low carb have actually eliminated sweeteners. So if you can do that, that's excellent. For me, I like my tea and coffee a little sweet. I like it rich with cream, so that is in my keto coffee or keto chai is a lot better than your regular milk chai. I prefer this, but I need my sweetness. I do have a bit of it. I think it's fine. It's up to you. If you can manage without it, superb. If you can't, have it in moderation. A little bit is not going to cause you as much harm.
And we are not looking at the dangers of sugar, right? Sugar is highly
Hmm.
inflammatory. Sugar is also very
Yes.
addictive. And sugar,
Yes.
in the long run, like even if we look at studies, the cancer cells actually flourish when there's more sugar in the body. And when you
Yes.
eliminate sugar from the body, there are studies which show that the cancer cells have actually shrunk, right?
Sure.
So the
Yes. Yes.
inflammatory nature of sugar, the inflammatory nature of processed foods, adding things like maltodextrin and aspartame
Yes.
and calling it health drinks, all these
Yeah.
kind of things are actually more harmful for us than having a little stevia once in a while or erythritol once in a while.
Yes.
And like you said, it
Yeah.
has to be in moderation. We can't overdo it. We can't kind of indulge in sugar-free sweets also every day and then say, okay, fine, I'm going to stay healthy. That is actually counterproductive,
Yeah.
right?
Yes. Yes. So even early on, in when I started off, for example, I didn't have, I didn't have keto desserts and things like that initially when I started on. So I think whatever you tend to have in excess, you will tend to crave for more. So you
Hmm.
can give it to yourself like maybe a weekly treat or something
Yes,
if you really feel like it. But
yes,
in general, it's best to avoid it. And sugar, yes, sugar is it's like a drug. So the
hmm,
more you have it, the more you crave for it. Then the
yes,
more you feel like having it after meals or whatever. And sugar has a lot of other damages as well. Sugar is the worst thing possible for your gut bacteria,
hmm,
and your gut is your second brain.
hmm,
So it destroys your gut bacteria. Actually, a large percentage of people do have what is known as leaky gut,
yes,
right? Which is the cause of a lot of inflammation in the body. Eat and you think about it. When you have a very carb-rich meal, you feel kind of overfull at the end of the meal. You feel a little bit of discomfort. But if you have a meal which is predominantly meat and vegetables, you feel very satisfied after the meal
yes,
without feeling uncomfortable. So I feel that that is also your body's way of telling you that this is a more wholesome, it's more nutritious,
yes.
rather than just filling up on carbs. I think carbs are, for me, grains are kind of like fillers. It just kind of fills you up. It's
Okay.
not necessary. It just gives you a feeling of satiety without really
A
satisfying.
very temporary feeling. Yeah.
Yes,
Melrose,
yes.
before your battery dies down and I think you've vanished into thin air, a lot of people ask me that, once I reach my goal, once I'm at this ideal weight, or once I'm not diabetic anymore, can I get back to eating normally? What's your take on that?
Yeah, yeah. So I think normal is overrated. I think our definition of normal is based on, like we said, on our experiences or on what we have grown up believing.
Mm,
But it's actually not normal at all. It's a very abnormal way of eating. And of course, you can go back to eating whatever you like. But the fact of the matter is that you will eventually find that slowly those things are going to crop back up.
okay.
Because if processed foods and carbs and grains and seed oils are causing inflammation, and you eliminated it and your body has healed,
Mm,
and then you again reintroduce those products back into your system, you are again slowly creating inflammation in your
yes.
body. So
Yes.
I do believe that yes, for some people maybe they find it difficult. So if you have to do that, then include, if you want to have a maybe say a slightly different way of looking at it, then maybe you can have slightly higher carb vegetables, right? So you want to have something else, like you have you can go low carb. So low carb means you avoid your grains, you avoid your processed food, you eliminate the sugars, you leave that out. But you have maybe you can include potatoes or carrots or certain vegetables or sweet potatoes, which are nutritious carbs at least, right?
Mm.
So you're not having empty calories and simple sugars, but you're at least having something which is nutritious. And this, and you can have that in moderation, so that you do feel like, okay, fine, I am having some amount of carbohydrates, or you are enjoying whatever you can, or maybe an occasional, whatever French fries or whatever it is, but without really going towards too much towards grains and processed foods. So I think that would be a midpoint if somebody was looking at
So, Melrose, before your phone totally flatlines on us, I'd like to thank you for the time that you've taken to speak to me and to those who are going to be watching this interview. I hope you've been able to address a lot of concerns that people have, especially where low carb and protein is concerned. And as far as
it.
you're concerned, all that I can say is keto on, because you're doing a wonderful job and you're inspiring so many people.
Exactly, and thank you so much for having me, Nirmala. It's really nice. Even I think your questions on the group have also been very deep, very insightful. So I do feel that, and as a doctor, I think you do understand the basics of where we come from. And I just wish the medical fraternity would also look at it more holistically. I think it's a
I
long-term solution to a lot of problems. Yeah, and we need more people like you. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Melrose. So have a good weekend and see you soon.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. You too.
I hope this talk with Melrose has been an eye opener for you. There's a lot that even I glean when I talk to her. I hope that in the near future, Melrose and I will both have newer experiences, and we hope that we can bring that to you as well. In the meantime, this is Nirmala signing off, and remember, wellness begins with your plate.